We're going to talk first of all about the Constitution of Queensland, and I notice here it's 2001 and it's Act number 80 of 2001, and that's the Queensland Government logo there. Why is that the Constitution of 2001?
Well, Premier Bligh and the Queensland Labor government decided to modernise the Constitution, okay? So they put forward the Constitution. They also had a commission on changes that they wanted to put into the Constitution, and within all this, the power of referendum from the people was totally vetoed.
Okay, can you show us in here what you're referring to?
Well, basically, if we come back right at the beginning, the object of this Act and Constitution is, yes, this Act declares, consolidates and modernises the Constitution of Queensland. Note, however, this Act does not consolidate the following constitutional provisions because of the special additional procedures, including approval by the majority of electors at a referendum that may be required. In other words, the referendum concept has no longer been included in the Constitution. Yet, a change to the Constitution previously required that it be a referendum. So therefore, how can this legally be the Constitution of Queensland if the people of Queensland under the previous Constitution did not approve it?
They didn't approve it.
Okay, however, the real question is, why was this applauded by both houses of Parliament?
When it wasn't
by
given...
both sides of the House.
Right.
The opposition as well as the government.
And the people had no idea what was going on.
Well, nobody seems to know much about
it. Did you?
No, I didn't. And suddenly it's law. But the interesting thing is, if you have a look now, you've got the Constitution of Queensland 2001, reprint number 1A. Okay? Now this is saying that this was reprinted as in force on 29th of November.
2004.
Right. So there have been changes made. Now, when we see a book on the bookshelves or in a library or in a bookstore, we see a reprint. All it is a new print.
Reprint of the original text.
Right. If it's been
but this is not original text.
No. If the book has been reprinted, it is also shown as a second, third or fourth edition.
Correct.
In other words, there are changes.
Right.
This is just called a reprint.
Okay.
So if a person sees a reprint, they may think that all this is some more copies are being printed out by the government printer.
Right.
However, this is not correct.
Okay. Can you show us what they've done?
Well, we won't go through that because we don't have the time.
Okay.
In this to go through, basically let's talk about the concept, because what people need to understand is how they have been able to do it with nobody knowing, and basically if you don't know, you don't care. So things just roll on.
So you would say that both sides of the political fence have been led into a trap?
Well, I don't even know how many of the politicians in the Labor Party know about the way this has all been done.
Yes.
I think they'd be appalled, a lot of them. And if you remember, I don't know how true this is or how this is only an opinion, we had 14 politicians resign, members of Parliament, 14 of them that resigned under Peter Beattie's 3-year reign prior to the last election.
Okay.
And some of them included ministers.
That's
now,
right.
why did they leave?
Okay.
That's a very interesting question.
It is, yes.
And you don't get 14 people leaving because they want more time with their families.
Now, we've got this Reprint Act of 1992, and it says a reprint as in force of the 1st of January 2006. What's all this about?
Okay. In 1992, this Act was brought out to allow them to do the reprints, as we mentioned, with the Constitution. It enables people to change things as they reprint them. Now, the interesting thing, if we look in here, we have to go right down the back, the authorisation of reprints. It says here that it must be authorised by the Parliamentary Council. But a reprint purporting, not known, but purporting to have been authorised by the Parliamentary Council is taken to have been authorised by the Parliamentary Council unless the contrary is established.
Well, we've got to establish that there is a country coming up.
Well, these are the sorts of things we have to look at. And the other interesting thing is the effect of the reprint. It is taken as correct. A reprint of a law is taken as correct. even if things have been changed in it. So
even if it's a law there that has not been amended, is authorised by the Parliamentary Council.
Well, if it's authorised by the Parliamentary Council and has been reprinted by the government printer, then the text of the law, as at the reprint date, is, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, taken to be shown correctly in the reprint. So therefore...
What do you think of that for a little bit of stealth?
So therefore, when you start looking at things like this, you have a look at this, which is the Constitution Act of 67, reprinted in force as in June 2002. Now, why are we reprinting 1867 law?
Well, it's an amendment of the Act of 1890, but how can they do that?
Same thing, it's reprinted. And the Constitution Amendment Act in 34, it's reprinted. Now, we note these are reprints 2B and 2 and 2. The Land Act, which came into being in about 92 to 94, in proper, has been amended 51 times.
Did you hear that? The Land Act. If you think you own your block of land now, think again. We'll show you after.
Now, the interesting part is that there have been 42 changes since 2000, just prior to the 2001 Constitution. Now, there are a lot of things in these reprints that we find that are subverting the whole course of our history. Look, Ray.
2, 1.
Now, to give you an idea of what we've been talking about here, now Alec's going to show you from his graph the details. Can you show us, Alec, what this is all about, what's happened, please?
Well, I've got a pen here, that'll be fine. Alright. When we talk about the governance of Queensland, the 1867 Constitution and everything else that was set up, what we do have to realise is the people who did this were very, very intelligent.
Very clever.
Well, no, they were wise against clever. The wisdom and cleverness are two different things. The current government is clever. The very first government was wise. They were wise because they gave us controls. They knew that somewhere down the track somebody would try and subvert the form of government that we've got. Okay, so they put in safeguards and measures to try and maintain our democratic status and keep this place as a democracy.
I know you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The reason I've numbered them is simply this. They organised a representative elected government.
Elected by the people.
Elected by the people to represent the people. That's
right.
what we have. And the government is supposed to represent the people and represent the people's ideas and needs. We had an upper house initially to control the lower house. In other words, to make it accountable for what it did.
Yeah. And they did away with that.
Well, we'll come to that. We have a governor established who is independent. The governor was representative of...
Separated from here.
From here.
Yeah.
Representative of the Crown. Now, when the laws were passed through here and through here, the governor then looked at it to see if the laws were conscionable. In other words, whether they were good for the people, whether they were beneficial. And then they passed the laws. We had a system of judiciary...
Which was separate, wasn't it?
It was called, under the separation of powers,
yes.
It had to be separate, because if you have the law under the government... Then
the government could dictate what happens.
You have a regime like we had with the fascism, Nazism and communist
Same as Hitler.
Well, it's basically exactly the same, because when they want to change the laws, they just change them, and the judiciary then has to...
And then this governor here just rubber stamps it, and it becomes law.
That's the way the system could be, but not the way it was set up. So we had these various controls and a constitution, okay? Now,
but what's happened by doing away with this...
No, hang on. We've got to look at what's happened. Let's assume we're going to see what has happened. Let's not assume that they've done away with it yet. Okay?
Right.
So let's look at the next bit.
All right.